London, September 1666. A city swollen with trade, smoke, and ambition. The richest capital in Europe, and one of the most flammable. The air is hot and dry after the longest summer in living memory. Timber houses lean toward each other above crooked lanes. Tar, tallow, and pitch drip from their beams. Inside every home, a flame burns. Candles, hearths, and ovens, the fragile engines of daily life. And somewhere in this forest of wood and smoke, a single spark is waiting. When it lands, it will set in motion 4 days of terror that erase 2/3 of the medieval city. The Great Fire of London. A catastrophe born not from war or rebellion, but from routine. A city of timber and pride. In 1666, London is a patchwork of two worlds. To the west, grand stone halls and mansions of merchants and nobles. To the east, a warren of timber dwellings, tanneries, bakehouses, and alleys so narrow that daylight barely reaches the ground. More than 100,000 people live within the old Roman walls, packed, noisy, and unregulated. Open sewers run beside stalls of grain and fish. Chimneys belch smoke day and night. Every street contains the same hidden threat: dry wood, open fire, and wind. Yet Londoners see only prosperity. The civil wars are over. King Charles II has restored the monarchy, and the city hums with confidence. Ships from every corner of the world fill the Thames with sails. No one suspects that within days, this wealth will become fuel for one of history's greatest infernos. The Baker of Pudding Lane. On the southeastern edge of the city stands Pudding Lane, a narrow descent toward the river. It smells of yeast, meat, and animal fat from nearby markets. Here, Thomas Fariner, baker to the King's Navy, keeps a small brick oven beneath his family's rooms. Saturday, 1st September 1666. The day is hot and windless. Fariner finishes baking late at night. His daughter Hannah checks the ovens and believes them safe. The family goes to bed above the shop. Shortly after midnight, a few embers still glow beneath the ashes. Beside them, bundles of brushwood, bavens, wait for the morning bake. One spark finds them. Flames rise through the floorboards, silent at first, then roaring. By 1 a.m., the bakehouse is engulfed. Fariner's apprentice wakes and shouts. The family climbs through an upstairs window onto the neighbor's roof. All escape, except the maid, who freezes in panic. She becomes the fire's first recorded victim. A city primed to ignite. What begins as a domestic accident meets a perfect storm of urban weakness. London's houses are built with jettied upper floors that hang over the street, nearly touching across the lane. Roofs are coated in pitch. Beams are bone dry from months without rain. The wind that night is rising from the east, carrying embers like flocks of birds. Within minutes, fire spreads from the bakery to the blacksmith's shop next door, then to a tavern called the Star Inn. By 2 o'clock, the entire row is aflame. No fire brigade exists. Only bucket lines, parish hand pumps, and desperate neighbors. They throw water, beer, even urine. But the wind drives the flames faster than they can run. A witness later writes that the street burnt like a line of matchwood. The mayor who fell asleep at dawn. Alarms reach the Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. He rides to Pudding Lane, surveys the blaze, and declares, "A woman might piss it out." Then he returns home. It is the greatest act of negligence in the city's history. The mayor alone holds the power to order demolition fire breaks, tearing down houses to halt the spread. But the owners are wealthy merchants, his political allies. Destroying their property without consent could ruin him. He hesitates. While he deliberates, the fire devours Fish Street Hill. Warehouses full of oil, tar, sugar, and brandy ignite. Explosions shake the riverfront. The flames leap 50 feet high. By sunrise, the waterfront from London Bridge to the Custom House is a single continuous inferno. The wind feeds the beast. The east wind strengthens, turning the blaze into a storm. Sparks fly half a mile ahead, starting new fires. Smoke darkens the sky. The air glows red. Samuel Pepys, secretary to the Navy Board, watches from his house across the river. He writes, "An infinite great fire, the wind mighty high and driving the flames every way." By mid-morning, the heat is so intense that glass melts in windows and church bells drip from their towers. Pigeons, unwilling to leave their nests, fall burning from the sky. Citizens flee with what they can carry. Carts jam the streets. Thieves cut harnesses to steal horses. Some people bury valuables in gardens. Others throw belongings into the Thames. Pepys himself buries his Parmesan cheese and wine in his yard. By evening, a mile of city is gone. 300 houses, 9 churches, countless shops. Ash. Lives in the flames. Among the multitude are 3 Londoners whose records survive. Sybil Tame, widowed shoemaker, lives at Christ's Hospital near St. Paul's. She makes shoes for orphaned children, earning just enough to feed her daughters. She has no idea that by morning her workshop will burn to the ground. Joshua Curtin, bookseller of St. Paul's Churchyard, earns his living among paper, parchment, and ink, the most flammable materials in London. He hears the alarm bells and begins moving his stock into the crypt of the cathedral, believing stone walls will protect them. Robert Viner, goldsmith and banker of Lombard Street, one of the wealthiest men in England, hears the bells from his mansion and orders servants to carry his ledgers, jewels, and gold to Windsor Castle for safekeeping. 3 citizens, poor, middling, rich, all facing the same enemy. If you're fascinated by how everyday lives collided with disaster, subscribe to the channel to follow London's journey through catastrophe, recovery, and rebirth. The inferno advances. By Monday morning, 3rd of September, the fire has doubled in size. The Lord Mayor has fled the city. Leadership collapses. Strong winds drive the flames north and west into the commercial heart of London. The Royal Exchange, hub of trade for the entire empire, erupts in minutes. The Custom House, the Guildhall, the Goldsmiths' Hall, all are destroyed. Pepys records people carrying their goods on backs and heads, running over one another. The noise of collapsing houses is compared to cannon fire. Across the river, boats crowd the Thames, piled with families and furniture. Others simply wade in, holding children above the water, watching their city vanish. The burning of St. Paul's. On Tuesday, the 3rd day, the inferno climbs Ludgate Hill. At its summit stands St. Paul's Cathedral, the greatest monument of medieval London. 6 centuries old, surrounded by bookshops and printers, it dominates the skyline. Builders have wrapped it in wooden scaffolding for repairs. Perfect tinder. Inside its crypt, hundreds of booksellers have stacked their wares, trusting the great church to shield them. At midday, sparks reach the roof. Within moments, the scaffolding is ablaze. Witnesses describe the lead roof melting and pouring down the streets like rivers of fire. The heat is so fierce that the very stones explode. Great blocks crash through the crypt, crushing the books below. The cathedral collapses in a roar heard across the city. To many, it seems a judgment from God. London's spiritual heart reduced to cinders. Fear and blame. With order gone, fear turns to rage. Rumors claim the fire is deliberate, a plot by foreigners, Catholics, or the Dutch. England is at war with France and Holland, and suspicion becomes violence. Crowds hunt strangers in the streets. A woman carrying chickens is beaten to death when someone shouts she carries fireballs. Into this hysteria steps Robert Hubert, a half-mad watchmaker's son from Normandy. He confesses to throwing a firebomb into the bakery. He had not even arrived in London until after the fire began. No matter. The authorities, desperate for a scapegoat, accept his confession. In October, he is hanged at Tyburn. The real cause, Farriner's neglected oven, is quietly ignored. The king takes charge by Tuesday night. The inferno covers nearly 2 square miles. Flames threaten the palace at Whitehall to the west and the Tower of London to the east, where 9,000 barrels of gunpowder lie stored. At last, King Charles II acts. He and his brother, the Duke of York, ride through the smoke, directing soldiers to create gunpowder firebreaks. Houses are blown up street by street, starving the flames of fuel. The king himself joins the bucket lines, throwing water and encouraging citizens. For 4 days, the wind has howled. Now, in the early hours of Wednesday, 5th of September, it drops. The flames weaken. The last great wall of fire halts before the moat of the tower. London is spared annihilation. The ashen morning when dawn comes. The city is unrecognizable. From the Tower to Fleet Street lies a landscape of blackened ruins. 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and the homes of nearly 100,000 people are gone. The official death toll lists 6 names, a number few believe. The heat had been so extreme that bodies were reduced to ash, leaving no trace to count. Fields north of the city fill with refugees sleeping under tents and carts. Markets reopen in makeshift stalls. Food arrives from the countryside, but there is not enough shelter. A city that once fed an empire now begs for bread. Among the survivors, Sybil Tame finds refuge in the ruins of Christ's Hospital. Joshua Curtin, having lost his books, descends into debt and dies penniless. Robert Viner rebuilds his business, only for King Charles, his debtor, to cancel royal loans years later, bankrupting him. From disaster to rebuilding, in the weeks after the fire, Londoners begin clearing rubble by hand. The stench of smoke lingers for months. Workmen cart away 68,000 tons of debris. Parliament establishes new laws. No more timber houses within the walls. Streets must be widened. Buildings made of brick or stone, protruding jetties outlawed. Architect Christopher Wren and surveyor Robert Hooke draw ambitious plans for a rational city of boulevards and piazzas. Money and politics scale them back, but their influence shapes the new London. Wren designs a new St. Paul's Cathedral, grander than the first, a vision of rebirth in stone. Hooke and Wren also design a monument to the fire itself, a 202-foot column of Portland stone. If laid flat, its tip would rest exactly on the bakery site where the spark began. It rises not as triumph, but as warning. The uncounted dead, for centuries, the official records maintain that only a handful died. Yet evidence tells another story. Contemporary observers noted that entire slum districts near the river vanished. Later, archaeologists uncovered layers of fused brick and glass, signs of temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees. At such heat, bone and flesh disintegrate. Modern historians estimate the death toll in the hundreds, perhaps thousands, especially among the poor who lived and worked in the maze of alleys near Pudding Lane. Their names never reached the registers. Their bodies left no trace. The silence of their disappearance became the fire's final cruelty. A city reborn. By the following spring, London hums again. Brickmakers fire kilns along the Thames, carpenters raise new frameworks of oak and stone, merchants return, rebuilding shops on the very footprints of the old. The new city grows safer, stronger, and more ordered. Fire insurance companies appear, the first in the world, their symbols still carved on Georgian facades today. A permanent fire service forms to prevent another catastrophe. And atop Ludgate Hill, Wren's dome begins to rise, a symbol not of punishment, but of endurance. When it is completed decades later, St. Paul's becomes the face of the reborn capital. The lesson of the flames. The Great Fire of London began with a spark no larger than a coin. It destroyed the homes of kings and beggars alike, erased centuries of architecture, and humbled a city that believed itself untouchable. Yet from its ashes came transformation, new laws, new trades, new ideas of safety, insurance, and planning. The fire that consumed London also forged its modern identity. Walk the city today, and you still walk its memory. The monument stands near Monument Street, pointing toward the sky. The rebuilt St. Paul's commands the horizon, its stones born from the same dust that once smothered the streets below. 3.5 centuries later, the fire remains more than history. It is a reminder written in every brick that greatness built in haste will always burn, and that endurance is not measured by what survives the flames, but by what we choose to build after they are gone. To uncover more true stories that shaped our world, join our channel. Subscribe, watch, and keep the past alive.